Imagine it's early December. A kid bolts out of bed before the sun is even up, races into the living room, and starts scanning every shelf, every lamp, every curtain rod. They're not looking for presents. They're looking for a spy, a tiny one, dressed in bright red, frozen in a permanent smile, staring back with wide cartoon eyes. This is the elf on the shelf. On the surface, it looks harmless. A magical elf that flies to the North Pole every night to tell Santa whether you've been naughty or nice. But here's the strange part. This isn't just a toy. It's also a behavior system, a global business, and, according to some researchers, a child's first lesson in what it feels like to live under constant surveillance. Since 2005, this little felt elf has quietly taken over December in millions of homes. It's in living rooms, classrooms, hotel lobbies, even tropical resorts. And behind that one smiling face sits an entire holiday empire. So how did a too creepy idea publishers didn't want turn into a full-blown Christmas tradition? To answer that, we have to go back, not to the North Pole, but to a regular living room in the 1970s. Back then, before Instagram and Pinterest, there was just Carol Ebersold and a single elf ornament named Fisbee. Fisbee wasn't a brand. He was a little pixie sitting in Carol's house. The rules were simple. He watched the kids during the day, then flew back to Santa at night to report on what he'd seen. That was it. No merchandise, no marketing campaign, just a tiny family myth. Fast forward to the early 2000s. Carol is an empty nester, money is tight, and her daughter, Shonda Bell, keeps thinking about that elf. As a former teacher, she looks at the old family ritual and realizes this isn't just cute, it's scalable. It's basically a plug-and-play Christmas tradition waiting to be packaged. So Carol, Shonda, and another daughter, Krista Pitts, write a rhyming picture book, bundle it with a little elf doll, and pitch it to publishers. The response? Hard number. Too weird. Too niche. A toy kids aren't allowed to touch. That goes against the basic idea of what a toy is. So they do the risky thing. They self-publish. They form a tiny company, drain savings, sell a house, order 5,000 elf on the shelf kits, and start selling them anywhere they can. School fairs, church bazaars, local events, and slowly something clicks. Parents aren't just buying a book. They're buying a ready-made ritual that promises to make December a little more manageable. Hey kids, the elf is watching. Maybe don't body slam your sister into the Christmas tree. Then comes the big break. A paparazzi photo of Jennifer Garner holding the book, followed by a segment on the Today Show. Overnight, the elf leaps from craft fair oddity to national phenomenon. Within a few years, it's a bestseller and the foundation of what will become the Lumistella Company, a full-on Santaverse built around one single idea, a small toy with big rules, because the real power of Elf on the Shelf isn't in the doll itself. It's in the ritual wrapped around it. If you look closely, the Scout Elf is not impressive. It's a stiff little body in a red felt suit, white collar, and a plastic head with 1950s-style cartoon eyes. But that retro look is intentional. It feels like something your grandparents could have had, even though it actually launched in 2005. It's manufactured nostalgia, a new product dressed up as an old memory. The real magic lives in the book. The Elf on the Shelf picture book reads like a sweet rhyming story, but it functions like a rule book. It explains that your elf is a scout elf sent from the North Pole. Its job is to watch during the day, fly home at night, and update Santa on your behavior. Then comes a single, crucial rule. You can't touch the elf. That one line does a lot of work. It stops the elf from becoming just another toy tossed in the pile. It keeps it separate, up high, almost like an authority figure. It also keeps the cheap felt from being destroyed by toddlers. And it introduces stakes. If you touch the elf, you might break the magic, and Santa might not hear about your good deeds. If a kid breaks the rule anyway, there are many rituals to fix it. Apology letters, cinnamon magic, singing carols to restore the elf's powers. Suddenly, this is more than hide and seek. It's a tiny system of sin, confession, and redemption acted out in your living room. There's also the adoption moment. The elf doesn't fully come alive until the family gives it a name. Once that happens, that mass-produced doll stops being an elf and becomes our elf. Naming hooks emotions to a product in a powerful way. Then the daily loop starts. At night, the elf flies to the North Pole. In the morning, it appears somewhere new in the house. The first thing the kid does when they wake up, they look for the elf. The second thing they remember, I'm being watched. And that's where the story stops looking like pure Christmas magic and starts looking a lot like something else. There's a famous idea in sociology called the panopticon. Imagine a circular prison with a single watchtower in the middle. The prisoners never know when the guard is actually looking at them, so they begin to behave as if they're always being watched. Eventually, they start policing themselves. Critics argue that Elf on the Shelf is basically the panopticon in red felt. The elf sits high up watching. It never explains itself or negotiates. It simply gathers information and reports to a distant authority, Santa, who decides your reward. The child doesn't know when the elf is watching, only that it might be, so they adjust their behavior accordingly. You don't need security cameras if you can convince people that you might be watching. On top of that, the elf reinforces the naughty or nice binary. You're either good and get presents or bad and don't. There's no category for had a terrible day, has ADHD, or pushed my brother because he pushed me first. It encourages kids to behave for external rewards. I'm good because I want stuff, not I'm good because I care about people. For anxious kids, that can be intense. Instead of feeling like a fun visitor, the elf becomes a tiny judge in their safe space. Of course, a lot of parents roll their eyes at the criticism and say, it's just a game. Kids also believe in the tooth fairy and flying reindeer. And they're not wrong. For many children, this is simply part of a magical stage of development. But there's another piece to the puzzle that no one planned for. Social media. Originally, the instructions were simple. Move the elf at night, let the kids find it in the morning. Done. Then Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest turned the elf into a digital performance. Suddenly, the elf isn't just sitting on a shelf. It's making snow angels in flour, zip lining through the kitchen, wrapping the toilet in gift paper. Parents start posting increasingly creative elf setups. Other parents see them, and quietly, the bar rises. If your elf just sits still, it can start to feel like you're failing the assignment. This is where elf fatigue kicks in. The elf becomes one more item on an already overloaded December checklist. Gifts, work, school events, and now a tiny nightly production for your kid and potentially the internet. The panic of "I forgot to move the elf" becomes a meme because it's true. And not shockingly, most of that labor falls on moms. Planning, staging, cleaning, remembering. The elf was supposed to help control kids' behavior. Often it ends up controlling parents' sleep schedules. Meanwhile, the company behind it is doing something else entirely, building a universe. If every family only needs one elf, how do you keep growing? You don't sell more elves. You sell everything around the elf. So we get elf pets, reindeer and Arctic foxes kids can actually cuddle, elf mates that aren't spies but kindness champions, clothing lines for elves, activity kits, apps, animated specials that are basically long commercials, branded cereals and snacks, vacation packages where your elf gets the VIP treatment at a resort. The elf on your shelf is now the entry point into a full ecosystem, the Santaverse. And it doesn't stop at American suburbs. The elf has spread to the UK, to Australia's summer Christmas, to South African malls, to expat apartments in Dubai. Sometimes it's embraced, sometimes it's adapted, and sometimes in countries with older, deeper Christmas traditions, it's criticized as just another American commercial character trying to edge out local folklore. So what does all of this actually say about us? On one level, Elf on the Shelf is an undeniably clever piece of holiday storytelling. A tiny character that gives kids something to hunt for every morning and parents a shorthand for please behave. On another level, it's a case study in how modern childhood, capitalism, and surveillance all blur together. A private family ritual becomes a global brand. A cute little spy becomes a way to talk about power, privacy, and how much of our behavior is shaped by the possibility that someone, somewhere might be watching. Next time you see an elf peeking down from a bookshelf, you can still enjoy the magic. But you might also find yourself asking a more unsettling question. Is this just a Christmas game? Or is it a miniature model of the world we're building? One where the watchers smile, the rules rhyme, and the surveillance comes in a bright red box.